What if I told you that the very mechanism designed to protect the minority in Washington, D.C., the Senate filibuster, just became a trap for the man who wields it? Not a trap set by his enemies, but one he walked into himself, potentially changing the face of American politics forever. Most people, the vast majority, see the headlines. They see the political posturing. They see the Save America Act stalled in Congress, but they have no idea what's really happening. They don't grasp a seismic shift that's about to ripple through every single piece of legislation, every future presidency, every aspect of your life. Because what we are about to witness after Trump's latest filibuster isn't just about a single bill dying. It's about the crumbling of a fundamental pillar of American governance. It's about the thin veneer of control that the political class, the establishment, the narrative shapers have maintained for decades, suddenly cracking wide open. And figures like Elon Musk, who constantly challenge the status quo, are already seeing the writing on the wall. And by the time you finish this video, you won't just understand the depth of this crisis. You'll see the threads of power, the real levers, and why the seemingly procedural maneuver could spark a revolution in how our government actually works. This isn't just news. This is a masterclass in how power really operates, and how sometimes the greatest weapons can backfire spectacularly. Let's pull back the curtain, shall we? You've heard the term filibuster. It sounds old-fashioned, maybe even a little dramatic, like something out of a black and white movie. And you'd be right, in a way. The traditional image is a senator talking for hours, sometimes days, weeding from phone books or cookbooks, all to stop a vote. But that's not what happened here. Not really. Trump's filibuster of the Save America Act wasn't a marathon speech. It was a modern filibuster. It was a threat. A quiet procedural move backed by his allies signaling that they would simply not allow the bill to move forward. No drama, no grandstanding, just the cold, hard reality of Senate rules. This act, the Save America Act, a piece of legislation designed to, save America in some broad, undefined way, became the latest victim. Now, let's be clear. The filibuster is a Senate procedure. It's not in the Constitution. It evolved over time. It gives a minority of senators the power to delay or block a vote on legislation by prolonging debate. To overcome it, you need 60 votes, a supermajority, to invoke something called cloture and end the debate. Only then can the bill even be voted on by a simple majority. Think about that for a second. A bill can have the support of 51 senators. The majority but still die because 41 senators refused to let it come to a vote. Trump and his allies used this power. They deployed the filibuster. They calculated. They strategized. Their aim was clear: prevent the Save America Act from becoming law. Why? Perhaps because it contained provisions they opposed. Perhaps because it was a strategic move to deny the opposition a legislative victory. Whatever the immediate reason, this was a calculated play in the high-stakes game of Washington. They believed this was a masterstroke, a powerful demonstration of control. For almost 200 years, the filibuster existed in a relatively informal way. Senators could talk for as long as they wanted. It was rare, dramatic, and usually reserved for issues of monumental importance. It was seen as a way to protect the minority, to ensure that the majority couldn't simply steamroll over any dissent. Yeah, a check on raw power. But over time, it changed. By the mid-20th century, the rules evolved. Instead of having to literally stand and talk, a senator could simply threaten to filibuster. The 60-vote threshold became the de facto requirement for any significant legislation. It transformed from an emergency brake into a routine roadblock. A minority of 41 senators could effectively veto almost anything. This became the historical pattern. This became the accepted truth of how Washington worked. The system, through this procedural quirk, became incredibly efficient at not doing things. It ensured gridlock. It ensured that only broadly bipartisan legislation, or budget items that could bypass the filibuster, had a real chance. It forced compromise, yes, but often it just forced inaction. The media plays its part. They report the deadlock. They assign blame to one side or the other. They rarely challenge the system itself. They create the accepted truth of the moment. That's just how Washington works. And the public? They consume it. They absorb it. They believe this is inevitable. It's a mechanism that effectively manufactures consent for legislative paralysis. It prevents substantive debate by preventing votes. It makes sure real change, even if desired by a majority, is kept at bay. The goal is never to have a genuine, unfiltered conversation about legislative priorities. The goal is to funnel the public's attention to focus their outrage on specific, pre-approved targets, and to redirect their energy away from the actual mechanics of power. They want you arguing about the symptom, never the disease. This has been a historical pattern. This has been the accepted truth. But then something broke. Something fundamentally shifted. Trump's filibuster of the Save America Act didn't just stall a bill. It exposed the rot. It pushed the entire system to a breaking point. You see, the Save America Act wasn't some partisan wish list. For the sake of this story, let's imagine it was something that, on paper, seemed to have broad public appeal. Maybe it was something about infrastructure, or medical research, or strengthening elections, something that sounded, well, good. Trump's calculation was simple. Use the filibuster to deny a perceived victory to his opponents, or to protect certain interests. But this time, it was different. This time, the filibuster didn't just create gridlock. It created outrage, not just from the opposing party, but from unexpected corners, moderates, independents. Even some within his own party began to murmur, because his filibuster didn't just delay. It was seen by a critical mass as an act of raw, unadulterated obstruction against the bill that had genuine public support, or at least a strong positive perception. It didn't serve to protect minority view, it served to prevent majority from acting. And this is the crucial reversal. The filibuster, once a tool of caution, became a symbol of systemic dysfunction. His response backfired, spectacularly. It turned a strategic chess move into a tactical blunder of epic proportions. It wasn't a masterstroke, it was a self-made trap. And now, the filibuster itself, once a sacred cow of Senate procedure, is no longer just being debated, it's on the chopping block. This isn't just about the nuclear option anymore, where one party unilaterally changes the rules. This is about a bipartisan recognition, born from the frustration of this specific filibuster, that the Senate simply cannot function this way anymore. The outrage wasn't just about the bill. It was about the process. It was about the realization that 41 senators could hold the entire nation hostage, especially on something framed as saving America. They were forced to act. Democrats, sensing the groundswell of public frustration, pounced. Republicans, particularly those concerned about their own re-election prospects and the mounting perception of an utterly dysfunctional Congress, found their moment of courage. They're not just rejecting Trump's agenda, they're rejecting the implications of his relentless use of the filibuster and his handling of this entire situation. They're rejecting the idea that archaic rules should prevent a functioning democracy. They're saying, no, this isn't just how Washington works. This is how Washington fails. And this isn't just about one filibuster anymore. Oh no, this is about establishing new precedents. This is about sending a message. And that message is, the filibuster, as we know it, is in mortal danger. Now, let's zoom out. Let's talk about the real game, the metagame, because power, at its most fundamental level, isn't about laws or armies or even money. Power is about controlling belief. It's about shaping what people accept as true, what they believe is possible, and what they believe is right. Think about it. If they can control the information you consume, they can control your perception of reality. If they can dictate what's acceptable to say, they can control the boundaries of thought itself. And for too long, this control has been absolute. They tell you what the issues are. They tell you who the good guys and bad guys are. They define the conversation. This is the narrative war that figures like Elon Musk constantly highlight. He's often spoken about the manipulation of information, the battle for truth in an age of unprecedented connectivity. He's called out the legacy media and the establishment for their role in shaping public opinion, often to serve particular agendas. Musk, whatever you think of him, represents a powerful counter-narrative, a voice that champions skepticism and challenges the accepted truth. He's a disruptor in the information space, much like Trump tries to be in politics, but with a different target, the system itself. Musk understands that whoever controls the narrative controls the future. And what we're seeing right now with this Trump filibuster debacle is the establishment struggling to maintain control of the narrative they once owned. The narrative that the filibuster is a necessary evil, or it protects the minority. That story is collapsing. But here's the critical point. Their ability to control belief is weakening. The old methods are losing their potency. The accepted truths are no longer accepted by everyone. The illusion is starting to fray. And this, my friends, is a terrifying prospect for those who rely on that control to maintain their power. When people stop believing the stories, the entire structure begins to wobble. The rules, the procedures, the very foundations of how things are done, If the public no longer believes they are legitimate or fair, then their power vanishes. And this brings us to the most vital, the most hopeful part of this entire messy situation, the democratic turn, the rise of skepticism. Because for too long, many of us, myself included at times, accepted the narratives. We bought into the idea that the institutions knew best, that the experts were infallible, that the news we consumed was objective truth, that the filibuster, however frustrating, was a necessary evil. But a shift is happening, a profound awakening. People are waking up. They're asking the uncomfortable questions. They're challenging the conventional wisdom. They're seeing the threads of the puppet masters, the mechanics of how consent is manufactured. They're looking at these arcane Senate rules and saying, why? Why is this necessary? Why can't the majority actually govern? This newfound scrutiny of the filibuster, fueled by Trump's actions, isn't just about political maneuvering. It's a symptom of a larger phenomenon, a growing distrust in the institutions themselves. When both sides, who normally can't agree on the color of the sky, suddenly find themselves questioning a core procedural element of their own legislative body, it signals a deeper fracture. It signals that the traditional gatekeepers are losing their grip. And this, I believe, is a powerful and necessary corrective force in our democracy. Skepticism isn't cynicism. Skepticism is the engine of discovery. It's what forces accountability. It's what demands transparency. It's what allows us to truly think for ourselves, rather than simply parroting the approved talking points about Senate tradition or minority rights when those traditions are being abused to stop majority will. When the public refuses to swallow the narrative, when they push back against the manufactured outrage and the carefully crafted consensus, that's when true change becomes possible. That's when the system is forced to adapt, or, in this case, to potentially transform itself fundamentally. So, what are the stakes here? What does this tactical episode, this seemingly contained political squabble over a Senate rule, truly mean on a grander scale? This isn't just about one bill. This isn't just about Trump's political future. This is a battle for the very soul of our legislative process, for the ability of our elected representatives to actually govern, and for the fundamental contract of trust between the governed and those who govern. If the established rules can be so easily weaponized to create perpetual gridlock, and then defended in a way that alienates even those who traditionally supported them, what does that say about the stability of the entire system? It signals a profound realignment, a shift in the tectonic plates of power. We are witnessing in real time a broad civilizational pivot. The old ways of controlling the legislative agenda, of bearing bills through procedural threats, are clashing head-on with a newly awakened, deeply skeptical public who are demanding action. This incident is a stark reminder that procedures have power, that actions have consequences, and that even the most powerful figures can, through a single ill-considered use of a traditional tool, unravel years of carefully constructed influence and potentially destroy the very weapon they wield. It's a sign that the ground beneath us is shifting. The institutions, those ancient, seemingly unmovable pillars of authority, are under immense pressure. They are being questioned like never before. And that, my friends, is both exhilarating and terrifying. Because when the old ways crumble, what replaces them? Chaos? A more efficient, more democratic government? Or something else entirely? The answer depends entirely on us, on whether we continue to be curious, to be vigilant, to demand truth. This isn't just a moment in the news cycle. This is a masterclass in the fragility of power and the awakening of a populace. It's a moment of profound significance that will echo through the halls of Washington for years to come. It's a moment that proves the narratives we're fed are often just that, narratives. Stories designed to keep us complacent, even about the rules themselves. But we're not complacent anymore, are we? We're not buying the illusion. We're asking the hard questions, and that in itself is a powerful, powerful thing. So I want to hear from you. What do you see happening behind the headlines? Do you believe this is the turning point for the filibuster? Is this the moment where the old guard truly starts to lose its grip on procedural control? Or is this just another cycle in the endless political drama? Drop your comments below. Let's keep this conversation going, because your perspective, your insights are now more important than ever. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and never ever stop questioning the stories they tell you, especially the ones about how our government has to work. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the hidden truths of power. Until next time, stay informed.